and we don't know what 2023 has in store for us, but we know with God on our side, we will prevail. For my last video of this year, I wish to pay tribute to a man who died 50 years ago. As not on this day, he died on December 23rd. As I stated previously, I have a new job that's taken up a lot of my time, and it's when I get home in the evening, trying to record has been difficult. Not working today, so I'm able to catch up on a few things, hopefully. I want to talk to you today about Abraham Joshua Heschel, one of my heroes. Here's his picture right here. Well, Abraham Joshua Heschel, does it sound like a Jewish name? It certainly is. He was very much Jewish. In fact, he was a rabbi and a theologian. It was December 23rd of 2022 marked the 50th anniversary of his death. He was one of the major contributors to 20th century spirituality. He was born on January 11th, 1907 in Warsaw, Poland. He was descendant of 7 generations of rabbis of the mystical Hasidic sect. He held a PhD from the University of Berlin. He escaped from the Nazis and he found refuge in London, where he established the Institute for Jewish Learning before he finally came to America. After he arrived on the American shores, he taught philosophy and rabbinics at Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati from 1940 to 1945. And then he served as a professor of ethics and mysticism at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York City from 1945 until his death on December 23, 1972. When Union Theological Seminary, a Protestant institution in New York, decided in 1965 to appoint its first Jewish visiting professor, Heschel was the overwhelming choice. He wrote scholarly books and articles on Hebrew Bible, medieval Jewish philosophy, Kabbalah, and Hasidim, along with a number of devotional works. I used his 2-volume commentary on the prophets when I taught classes on prophets a number of years ago. And Christian as well as Jewish leaders described his writings as pure illumination. He wrote, "It takes 3 things to attain a sense of significant being: God, a soul, and a moment." For him, the moment was the 20th century, and an epoch he analyzed like a prophet who walked from the Old Testament into mainstream America. Called a militant mystic, his life and theology were anything but passive. In his lectures and writings, he urged his audiences not to forget the victims of the Holocaust or the plight of Russian Jews. He denounced racism as man's gravest threat to man, the maximum hatred for the minimum reason. And he declared that prayer and prejudice are totally incompatible. They can't exist in the same breast. When the call went forth for clerical support of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the Civil Rights Movement, and later for the Religious Coalition against the war in Vietnam, Heschel was the first major Jewish figure to respond. He soon became a fixture at civil rights marches and rallies. He joined Lutheran pastor Richard Newhouse and Jesuit Father Daniel Berrigan in forming clergy concerned about Vietnam. During the last week of his life, he waited in the snow to welcome Josephite Father Philip Berrigan, the brother of Daniel, when the anti-war priest was released from prison. He was, you can see here, a short bearded man, and who resembled an ancient Israelite prophet in modern dress. He liked nothing better than a good cigar, and the chance to respond to a question by saying, "My friend, let me tell you a story." Those who sought him out in his seminary office found an infinitely gentle rabbi who seemed to understand the essence of every question that was asked to him. He continuously taught that just to be is the blessing, just to live is holy. He firmly believed that effective prayer required actions as well as words. In other words, you don't just talk the talk, you must also walk the walk. And thus he declared that when I marched with Martin Luther King in Selma, Alabama, I felt like my legs were praying. And here's a picture made at the Selma to Montgomery March. And in 2015, the movie Selma came out, and his only child, his daughter Susanna, who went on to become a theologian herself, was offended because they depicted many people involved in the movement, including the Eastern Orthodox bishop, the Orthodox bishop. But her father wasn't depicted at all. Susanna was a professor of Jewish studies at Dartmouth College, and the iconic picture of her father marching with Dr. King has meant so much to many people. President Barack Obama said to her, "Your father's our hero." Everybody knows that picture. I felt sad and I had moments when I felt angry, she said, about the omission. It was tragic. And it was. I have on a couple of occasions met Reverend Peter Johnson, who was one of the youngest of the youngest of the paid staff members of Dr. Martin Luther King. And he has fond memories of Rabbi Heschel, Abraham Joshua Heschel. People in the movement called him Rabbi AJ, and he liked that. It was on January the 14th of 1963 that a conference on religion and race was held in Chicago. That was the beginning. It lasted about 3 days, I think, but it was on January 14th of 63. And at that conference, Dr. Martin Luther King and Rabbi Heschel met for the first time. And they became fast friends. Dr. King accepted the invitation, had it on his calendar, to attend the 1968 Passover Seder at the home of Dr. Heschel in New York. Unfortunately, this was prevented by his assassination. Heschel went to Atlanta and participated in King's funeral. It was on January the 14th, 2018, at Bethel AME Church in Corsicana. We celebrated the 55th anniversary of the Conference on Religion and Race. A number of local ministers accepted my invitation to participate, including Reverend Derry Johnson, pastor of Bethlehem Baptist Church, who read part of the speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Rabbi Frank Joseph of Temple Bethel, who read part of a speech by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. Rabbi Joseph, like myself, is a great admirer of Rabbi Heschel. He's been gone for 50 years, but the wonderful work he did, there were some great people of all faiths, many Christians, many Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, and whatever, who have made some outstanding contributions to human progress, fighting against racism, fighting against sexism, fighting against militarism. All these issues have needed to be challenged. And we thank God for the prophetic witness of Abraham Joshua Heschel. And as I conclude this, my last video for 2022, I hope we will be inspired by the prophetic spirit of this great man and resolve to do our part for the cause of justice in the future. And I wish everybody a happy and blessed 2023. Amen.